Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be about attempt selection for powerlifting. What this video is going to cover is attempt selection for either individual lifters or coaches coaching lifters at a competition or during a mock meet. This video will be relevant for building a total or going for PBs. It is not going to cover competing with other people on the day. So if you were second place and trying to make attempts to make first place, this video is not going to cover that. It's just for going for building a total or going for PBs. So the overview that this video will be covering is factors to consider when planning attempts. There's going to be information and a full guide for planning attempts, and then I'm going to finish with some real life examples. So the last comp we had here on the 19th of December was our SP Performance Strongest Santa comp. So I had 7 lifters do a full meet, 1 doing a bench only, so I had 8 total lifters. Out of 66 lifts, we had 61 successful lifts. There was actually no missed lifts, so no one missed the lift because the load was too heavy. It was just technical errors. So with this attempt selection guide, I don't think there is one best attempt selection system, nor do I think my system is the best. I think you should take what you like from this video, or take what you like from all different attempt selection videos from people who's made a similar video like me, like myself, and create your own type of system. However, this system that I made for myself has worked specifically good for me, going off our last comp that we had and previous ones that I've done. It's been quite a successful system. So for myself, I'm going to continue to use this system but refine it over time. So just to cover why I like to plan before the comp and not just make up my numbers on the day. Firstly, it makes my attempt selection fast. So after a person has done, say, their first attempt, they come off, I've got my little list of numbers, and it just helps me come to a decision of what the next attempt should be a little bit faster relative to if I didn't have any numbers written down in front of me. So I want to be able to pick my numbers quickly. It also makes decision making a little bit faster and easier for me when I have multiple lifters. Like the last comp I just mentioned, when I've got 8 lifters, I don't want to be trying to make up numbers on the day, because that would be chaos. 8 lifters, there was 12 people in the flight, so 8 of those lifters were all mine, so they were literally going one after each other, so I had to be pretty fast. So having that plan with me definitely made my job easier on the day. Also, I think it's good for the lifter to be mentally prepared. If I like to give a copy of the lifting attempts and obviously the warm-ups to my lifter, so they've got a little bit of a guide of what they're doing for the day. And lastly, it provides a comparison between the lift that the person just did on the platform and what my next lift was that was written down on my attempt selection. So for example, let's say the person did their second attempt, they did a 140 kilo squat, and I look at my third attempt that I had written down, and I had scribbled in my option 1 third attempt was about a 150 kilo. So I'm going to look at that second attempt and look at that 140 and look how it moved, and then I can do a comparison to that 150 third attempt I have written down on the paper. So I'm going to look at that second attempt and think, do I think that person has the 150? No. Is it a little bit under? Are they maybe at 148, or maybe are they at 152? So having that attempt written on the paper, as I said, it gives me some sort of comparison relative to what that lift looked like and what I predicted they were going to do, and then I can work between those two numbers. So there are some things to consider when you are making your attempt selection. The first thing is going to be the amount of experience the lifter has. So if you've got a total newbie who maybe has never competed before, only done a couple of comps, they're probably more likely to make some sort of technique error on the day. They may jump calls. They might be variable in their performance. So their first attempt the technique might look totally different to the second and look totally different to the third. So that the performance might be a bit more variable. So with a new lifter, I want to be a little bit more conservative on my attempts, particularly on openers. I don't want to do things which are overly hard. I rather do something a little bit easier, so I have more confidence that they can make those numbers. However, with someone who's a little bit more experienced, well, they might have a little bit less variability in performance, so the technique may not really change between lift to lift. They might be able to grind lifts a little bit heavier, and they could just have more experience overall on the day. So with that person, I possibly may open a little bit heavier, and my attempts might be a little bit closer to their max. So we're really trying to push them, so really trying to squeeze out a really good total, even hit some PBs. Another thing that you might have to consider is the conditioning of the person. So how fit are they? Does a full meet gas them? If they have not done a comp before, so if they are a newbie, you might not know how much energy they have during that competition. Sometimes it can be a pretty long day. It might go 4 or 5 hours, or it might be short. How is that person's energy levels? They might get really gassed by the time they get to deadlifts. Also, if someone has done a big weight cut, either doing sauna, water loading, cutting carbs, whatever they did, that might affect performance on the day. That might affect how much energy or how much fuel they have on that day. So that's something else you have to consider when making attempts, if you're going to be a bit more conservative or not. Another thing to consider is the personality of the athlete. So is it someone who's quite anxious in general and they tend to break under pressure? When they're stressed, do they tend to make mistakes, technique mistakes, jumping calls, or just forget what they're doing? Is their performance very variable? Does it change from set to set? And some people just get really emotional when they miss lifts. So if they miss a lift, sometimes they're just an emotional wreck, and it just might wreck their performance. So for someone like that, you might need to be a little bit more conservative in the attempts you make for that person. However, if you got someone a lot more relaxed, they're not really that emotional. If they miss a lift, they don't really get upset. They can just be like, whatever. Their performance is a little bit more consistent. So someone for that, you might push them a little bit more, give them attempts that a little bit more closer to their max or closer to that true one rep max. Also, something to consider is, what's the goals of the comp? Are you trying to build a total? Are you just trying to go for a PB? So if you're trying to build a total, maybe you're looking to save a couple of kilos in the tank just so you can go 9 for 9 and get a really good total. If you're hitting a PB, or just go for a PB, you don't really care what your total is. Maybe you're going to push those lifts a little bit harder, just see what your true 1 rep max is. Are you going to break a record? Again, that can fall either way. It can be that you're going a little bit conservative, just so you know you get that record, even if it's by a kilo. Or maybe the record is really far away and you need to make a bigger jump to hit it. Also, you might just be improving confidence during competition. So you might get someone who's the last 2 meets, they've just totally bombed it. and they're just losing their confidence because generally when people fail a task repeatedly, their confidence is going to drop. So you might just want to have a conservative meet, get them 9 for 9 so they can build some confidence again. So then they can build confidence and then push in future comps. Also, something to consider is what was the person's previous PBs? Because I know for myself, and I think this is a lot of people in general, when you're lifting an amount of weight that you have never done before, so it's a new PB, especially on squat, it can be a little bit, you can get a little bit anxious about it. And I find for myself that when I'm anxious about a lift, I tend to make silly mistakes, particularly on a squat. So, for example, let's say we're on a squat and someone's PB is 100 kilo, and they're going for a third attempt. And for the third attempt, you can either do 102 kilos, which is going to be a 2 kilo PB, or you can go to 104 kilos if that 100, let's say the 100 was a second attempt and moved really, really well. Okay, do we do the 102 kilo just to be safe, or do we take the risk and go 104? You have to think, is the extra 2 kilo worth it? Is the person just going to be happy with that 2 kilo PB, or are we going to push a little bit extra and go for a 4 kilo PB? It depends on the scenario, and these are probably things that you have to think of while you're doing your planning of your attempts and even on the day.